with us on Channels Television as I warmly welcome you to Health Matters. I am Yomi Otaigbe. Today on the show, we'll be delving into an aspect of hematology field, looking particularly at a condition known as anemia. Who and who can be susceptible to being anemic? What are those symptoms of anemia you should never ignore? And how can it be prevented and managed? These and other questions will be answered by our guests on the show. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
There are 1,001 ways to start your day.
Whether you're in Lagos, Nigeria,
in London or anywhere in the world,
or online.
we all want a perfect start to our day, don't we?
7 a.m. Every weekday, we bring you a better way to start your day.
Joining me now to shed more light on what anemia is a consultant clinical hematologist with the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, LASOTH, Dr. Wole Banjoko. Thank you so much, Doctor, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let me start by sharing my experience with anemia. So it was when I was pregnant with my first child, and I didn't understand it. Most of the time, I'm just feeling dizzy. If I stand up, I'm already like blacking out, and I never understood it until, of course, I had to go to the hospital and they checked my blood and they said it was so low. I was, okay, what happened? Why do, or why will anemia happen? Let me ask you that first question.
Okay, so I'll say that the way we approach anemia is in two ways. One is a clinical approach, and I'll explain that. And the other one is kind of like a laboratory approach. The clinical approach is looking at it from the point of whether you're producing enough blood. So we know that the bone marrow is where the blood is produced. So if you're producing enough blood in the bone marrow, it's good. But if you're not producing enough, it means you're going to become anemic. And I'm going to define anemia now. The second one is if your blood is being destroyed. So if you're producing enough blood, but unfortunately something is happening within your body due to some circumstances which we'll discuss, and then your blood is being destroyed, and there are symptoms that show for that as well. Then the third one is if you are losing blood. So if you're losing blood, that's another thing. Imagine if you're producing enough blood, your blood is not being destroyed, but something is just happening whereby you're losing blood. Occurs especially more commonly in women during their menstrual periods. So women lose blood to different levels during the menstrual period.
So for my own case that I just mentioned, in the past,
yes,
I was just fine just before pregnancy.
Yes.
So did pregnancy induce my anemia?
When you say you were fine, first of all, we're not sure of that, because pregnancy might have tipped you more into it. You might have been on the borderline. And then when you got pregnant for other reasons, because the baby is now demanding more, so he's taking more of your blood, and maybe you had just about enough, then at that point in time you start manifesting some symptoms. That's how it goes.
So let's break it down. You
Yes.
said clinically and
Laboratory. Yes.
And then there are, okay, is the person making enough blood? That's a question.
That's one question.
That's one question. And then the other one is the blood that is being made
being
destroyed by something else?
Yes.
Let's start with, is the person making enough blood?
Okay. So blood is produced in the bone marrow. And the bone marrow needs particular, I'll call them fuel, something to use to make blood. And there are three major things the bone marrow needs. One is iron, second one is B12, and the third is folic acid. So if you give these three fuels to the body will be able to produce blood if the environment itself is working. So the other thing that you have to look at is the bone marrow environment itself. Is it in a healthy state? Once it's in a healthy state, then it has the nutrients it needs, then it should be able to produce blood. There are things that can, apart from that, suppress the bone marrow from producing it, even though it has nutrients. But things that can occur due to some healthy states that are not good, it can suppress the bone marrow from producing. So things like infections, after a while, can suppress the bone marrow from producing and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's for production of blood in the bone marrow.
Yes.
So if everything is fine and the person is producing this blood, but something else is happening underground, what could that be?
Yeah, so if we leave that, because if he has enough nutrients, he's taking enough B12, he has enough iron, he has enough folic acid or folate, and the environment is good, we would, look for the next thing, which we said is he breaking down cells? So the things that can cause him to break down cells rapidly, things like malaria. Malaria can cause them to lyse the cells quickly. Then things like sickle cell, it's a hereditary condition whereby their blood is such that if they're exposed to a bit of stress, they start to break down their cells. And that's a bit of destruction. So you notice those kind of conditions when, because of the constituents of blood, their eyes can turn yellow and things like that. Depends on where the blood is being broken down. If it's broken down within the vessel, their urine will come dark. They will have this dark, what we call coke-colored urine. But if it's broken down within the spleen or any of the organs that can destroy blood naturally, it's being broken down at increased rates, then at that point they'll start having yellow eyes and things like that. So that's how it is.
Okay, so aside from sickle cell,
yes.
There was someone I knew that by the time the person had leukemia, acute leukemia, and by the time the first thing they noticed was that the blood was like 13%. Let's talk about that too. Some conditions,
yes,
aside from sickle cell anemia.
Yes. So acute leukemia is a different ballgame entirely. And what it involves is the fact that in acute leukemia, the cells that are multiplying rapidly, because a leukemia is where something is proliferating or excessively multiplying or rapidly multiplying. In that sense, what happens is it overcrowds, because it's being produced within the bone marrow. It crowds out any other cells in the bone marrow, preventing them from being produced. And because, for example, acute leukemia is white cells that are proliferating, it crowds out all the red cells, prevents red cells from being produced, and so the patient will definitely become anemic. And the fact that it's also a rapidly proliferating condition, anything that is like that, very metabolic in its production, what it does is it consumes a lot of oxygen, consumes a lot of energy. So it will consume even the blood that is being produced, and that makes it even worse.
Okay, so sometimes, let's describe that as some of the extreme reasons why someone will have anemia.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the signs.
Yes.
I spoke about being dizzy as one of them.
Yes. So the easiest way to approach the signs and symptoms of anemia, we talk about symptoms as what the patient complains about. Signs are what the doctor can elicit from the patient. If a patient has anemia, think of the heart as the one pumping the blood to the rest of the vessels. The heart, unfortunately, is working very well, but doesn't have adequate blood to pump. So it means that the pump is good, the supply line is patent and open to get to the different organs and systems and even the muscles and the tissues of the body that makes you active and energetic and all that. But when the blood is low, it means that very little is getting to those areas. So you start having symptoms. So you are weak, you are easily tired because not enough blood is getting to your muscles. Sometimes you can start passing less urine because not enough blood is getting to your kidneys to produce. You can start feeling headaches because not enough blood is getting to your brain, and you can start feeling dizzy as a result and things like that. So if you imagine any organ and think about the blood supply, if there's a reduction in blood supply to that organ, that what happens is that that organ starts to suffer for it. So the ones that need the most, the body does it in such a way that it allows those ones to get just enough so that they are still okay while the others suffer. So the person will really be tired, will really be breathless even when he walks a little bit. You have to take rests. The person might feel dizzy when he stands up and things like that.
That could be early stages, right? Are there symptoms that, could tell that this has gone beyond?
So the symptoms depend on how rapid the blood level dropped.
Yeah.
If it drops very rapidly, the symptoms are dramatic. If it drops very gradually, it takes a long time for the person because it's compensating for it. So it takes a long time for him to start manifesting real symptoms, especially if it doesn't drop too low at the beginning. So a lot of people do not even know they're anemic. They just find out by doing a test.
Because if you say, I'm tired, sometimes, because I've overworked myself, that's why I'm tired.
That's what
if you say, I'm breathless, okay, maybe I climbed too many stairs, you understand. But so how do we then know that this is anemia? Let's talk about, the diagnosis.
So if it was just a one-off, you can think, okay, maybe it was, but usually it's persistent, and that should be a red flag. Once you are noticing continuously that I'm always tired, I wake up, I don't feel like, go and check your blood level. Start from there, and then you'll see whether it is. It's a very simple test, very easy, it's not expensive, so at least check your blood level. Then from there we can work.
Okay, so it's just blood check.
Yes,
and
a blood check at the beginning.
PVC?
It's a PCV, HB, but we prefer that you do the full blood count so that if there's any other things, we'll see it in the parameters. That's how it is.
Are there complications that could arise from this?
Yes, definitely. As I said, it supplies the organ. So if there is a long-term or acute rapid cutoff to any organ, it can cause organ failure and even death. That's how bad it can be sometimes.
Any other one?
Oh, I've just said the extreme, but so many things can occur as a result. So many things. A lot of these patients do not feel like eating, they lose appetite. They can't function very well at work. They can't walk for long distances. They're always feeling dizzy and tired. Some of them can have seizures. You can imagine how disturbing that is to anybody if you're having seizures from anemia. Some of them can have chest pains, and sometimes their heart can even fail because not enough blood is getting to the heart. So they start getting swelling in the lower limbs, the legs. They start, having palpitations. They feel as if their heart is racing very rapidly and things like that. They get short of breath and things like that. So there are lots of things. We can go on, and I won't be able to stop.
And in children, because the WHO had said that anemia, of course, affects more women and children, than... let's talk about anemia in children.
Yes. Okay. I'm not a pediatrician.
I know.
However, I can tell you quite a bit about
I'm sure
it.
you've attended to some children who are
Definitely.
patients.
The main thing, especially in the younger children, the main cause of anemia in younger children is nutrition. A lot of them might not be getting the adequate nutrients. And as I said before, the nutrients you need for blood, B12, folic acid, iron. If you're not getting it in enough supply, a lot of them will be low on blood. For children, especially the younger ones, even the females, a lot of them have not attained to what we call menarche, where they start seeing their period. So we're not even thinking of blood loss in them. We are thinking of is usually nutrition. And for some of them that go to boarding houses and other things where they don't get, the adequate supply. For some of them that are, I know the Gen Z people of nowadays, they like eating all sorts of ice cream and things that don't have those kind of nutrients. Based on that, a lot of them might be anemic. So it might be wise once in a while for the parents to make sure that they check these things, check the blood. There are tests to do to check for these nutrients. If they are deficient, they can now give supplements in that regard.
What's the youngest patient you've had to take care of?
Let's say I see patients, especially for different conditions, from sickle cell to all that. So I see patients as young as 11 months, 10 months, sometimes even 6 months.
Wow.
Yes.
And in that child, that particular child will be sickle cell, right?
Yes, sickle cell patients usually, and I've seen for nutritional anemias, I've seen quite a number that are very young, especially in that age group. When they just come out of breastfeeding, they're not really eating, they're not getting enough nutrients.
Okay.
Breastfeeding keeps them very well, but after that, what next? So if they don't transition well into eating, that becomes a problem.
Okay, we'll just take a very quick break, and when we come back, Dr. Banjoko will still be here. To stay with us. Welcome back. Doctor, let's talk now about the treatment of anemia.
Okay, so the treatment of anemia will depend on the cause, obviously. So if it's nutritional, then you have to replace nutrients. You have to find out why the patient is not eating or the person is not eating that way and see how. If it's loss of appetite, you might need to find out what's the cause of. Is there an underlying illness that could be causing that? Can we deal with that so that we can now get the patient to eat well? If it's a child, you know that you have to work on appetite and things like that. If it's blood loss, for example, a woman who is having her periods and her periods are lasting much longer than they should and it's very heavy, that kind of patient usually will come down with severe anemia after a while. So what you need to do is find out what is causing the bleeding to be so heavy. If it's something that you have to refer the patient to the gynecologist for, you do that. In the time being, there are drugs we can use to suppress bleeding a bit, and then we start the patient on iron once we've confirmed the patient is iron deficient. Those are things we do. For things like B12, sometimes there's a condition whereby it is not that the patient is not taking enough B12, but there's something destroying a part of the body that allows the absorption of B12. As a result of that, we call it pernicious anemia. And as a result of that, the patient cannot absorb the B12 from the intestine. So it's like taking in food that has B12 and everything just goes out through the stool and things like that. So what we do there is we give B12 via an injection, so it avoids that route, and then the patient is fine. So things like that. If it's a leukemia, we treat the leukemia, and then the patient gets better and blood comes back. So it depends on the cause, always depends on the cause for oxygen. But there are things we can do acutely. So if a patient has lost a lot of blood, he might need to get a blood transfusion before we can start working on things to keep him alive, at least till the time we get to what we need to do. If the patient refuses blood, then there are other things. We have people like the Jehovah's Witnesses that don't accept blood. In that case, we might have to give things like erythropoietin, and we find out it's iron deficient, add iron to it, sometimes folic acid if it's necessary, and things like that. So those are nutrients that always boost the blood. So it always depends on the cause.
Okay, and as you always say, doctors and of course people in the medical line, prevention is always better than cure. Let's talk about prevention.
Okay. So how do we prevent it? Knowing the cause of something helps you to know how to prevent it, if you know that. So for things like sickle cell, definitely it's things like, awareness to get people to know what their status is, and then seeing how they can counsel them towards trying to marry the partner that will be conducive for them. Even though there are other things that can be done even afterwards to prevent giving birth to a sickle cell child. But this is not the program for sickle cell. We'll talk about that if need be at another time. But there are other things, nutrition-wise. So people should start eating foods that, contain the proper nutrients, what we call a balanced diet. People should stop just taking cakes and confectionaries, ice cream, and things like that. They should try to eat better. Then for people that bleed a lot from menses and things like that, they might need to, as I said, see the gynecologist, find ways to go around that and sort it out. So basically, if there is any illness, malaria, treated early rapidly so that it doesn't cause that. Infections, go to the hospital, get treated, things like that. Once we do that, then it's better. If the patient needs blood and can take blood, he should get blood to be taken.
Because sometimes the complications can be so severe and money consuming, time consuming, and so prevention, as we've outlined, is very, very key. Yeah. Thank you so much, Doctor, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
For all the insights that you've shared with us today on the program. Our guest on the show has been a clinical hematologist with the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, Dr. Wole Banjoko. Thank you indeed.
Thank you.
Let's check out our news corner for the latest stories.
The establishment of a presidential task force on Ebola virus disease preparedness and emerging public health threats has been approved by President Bola Tinubu. The president also ordered the immediate release of 10 billion naira as emergency intervention funding. A statement signed by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, indicates that the fund will strengthen the operational preparedness of the National Center for Disease Control and Prevention (NCDC) and support critical national public health emergency response activities. The Presidential Task Force on Ebola is to be chaired by the Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila, with membership drawn from relevant ministries, departments and agencies and state representatives. President Tinubu also directed all states hosting international airports and international border corridors, as well as relevant MDAs, to submit their plans, funding requirements and intervention needs for consideration and coordinated implementation, while also mandating consultations with security, diplomatic and aviation bodies with a view to regulating flights from affected and designated high-risk countries. The Plateau State government has launched the 2026 seasonal malaria chemo prevention campaign, targeting over 1 million children across the state with preventive malaria drugs through a house-to-house exercise. The intervention, which runs from June to October, is aimed at protecting children aged 3 to 59 months during the peak malaria transmission season.
This seasonal malaria chemoprophylaxis activity that normally we hold within the rainy season, because that is the peak of the malaria season. And because of the effort of all of us that are here, together with those in the field, our health workers that have been trained at several different areas, we have been able to achieve very significant results.
A coalition of stakeholders in the health sector have called on the National Assembly to hasten the amendment of the National Health Act to allow for increased allocation to Healthcare Provision Fund from 1% to 2%. During a dialogue in Abuja, participants maintain that the amendment will strengthen sustainable domestic financing of healthcare while also accelerating progress in the universal health coverage.
We believe in your powers, sir, ma. You have so much strength, so much power to contribute to moving development forward, especially social development, health, education, nutrition, agriculture, and all of that. It took the National Assembly to intervene before the BATPF was appropriated for in 2018. And today we are happy that the BATPF is being implemented. People are enjoying the benefit.
I want to pledge that we, from the Senate Committee of Rules and Business, will liaise with our counterpart there in the House. We will definitely go there and find out if they are keeping that bill somewhere. They will bring it out. Yes, we will bring it out.
Finally, on the news segment, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has donated a set of medical equipment for a new cancer center managed by the Federal Medical Center, Butemeta, Lagos. Speaking at the handover ceremony, the General Authority 70 of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Elder Adeyinka Ojediran, said the church is committed to humanitarian projects like this, which is expected to reach thousands of beneficiaries, a demonstration of the church's efforts in bringing succor to those in need.
The injunction is that love God and love your neighbor. And a way to show that love for our neighbors is to see that they have access to good medical care. And this donation is to facilitate that.
Healthcare generally is not cheap. Medical equipment that help us deliver these services are not cheap. And part of why they are not cheap is because most of these equipment are not produced in our country. And we all know what the exchange rate of naira to dollar is. So these equipment are going to improve our services. These services will range from prevention to diagnosis, treatment, and rehabilitation. So the whole spectrum.
Are you always feeling tired, dizzy, or feeling lightheaded, having headache, cold hands and feet? it may be anemia, do visit the nearest health facility around you to have a medical check. A stitch in time saves 9. That's Health Matters for this week. Thank you so much for staying with us. Do keep it locked on Channels Television. I'm Yomi Otaigbe.